Welcome to another edition of Cal's Corner Radio here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff and I'm your host. The executive producer of the show is the one and only Rob McConnell. Now, folks, as you know, the purpose of Cal's Corner is to cover everything from politics to the paranormal. That's a lot of subjects. Of course, we don't do that in every episode. It's not possible. But if you look at I think it's 101 or 102 episodes, whatever the number is that we've done so far with Rob, since we relaunched in the Middle East a couple of years ago, you will see that the subjects are, of course, all over the spectrum. And that includes tonight's episode, and I'm really honored to have our guest tonight. His name is Mr. Ajit Chak, and I will introduce him in a minute, meaning he'll start to come on. But let me give you a couple of quick updates real briefly. Regarding the U.S. presidential election, it is setting new records for being dysfunctional. Of course, America's got to always beat itself, right? So if you thought for a moment that the last contest in 2016 couldn't have been even made up by Hollywood if they wanted to, somebody would say nobody would ever see this movie. It's ridiculous. They've outdone themselves this time because you seem to have a president who just won't accept reality. Anyway, the latest blow to the Trump administration on the election outcome is that the head of his own party, who's running things in Pennsylvania. You can Google it. I'm not going to mention his name. Do your own research. Just search in YouTube. It was a news event today. I saw it myself, where the head of the GOP there, he was very blunt. He said there is no evidence of this conspiracy and all that going on in Pennsylvania. In fact, he bent over backwards to say how the allegations hurt what he and his team were doing, that they in fact had more stuff in place to be straight up and honest and transparent and accountable in Pennsylvania, especially than they did in forever in that state. These are his words. Now, you can judge what he's saying, take it up with him whether you want to believe it or not. The fact remains that record numbers of votes were cast for both people. Do the math, folks. Just look it up. Now, the number is so greater than the previous election that held the record with Barack Obama, the first time, not the second, that there could not be that much voter fraud. It is not possible, okay? I promise you, Jesus will come back first before they find 7 to 10, 12 million, make it up, votes that are fraudulent. It's not going to happen. So the point is, this thing will be solved soon. It's going to the courts. I understand why there have been some recounts. Let the legal votes be counted accurately, of course. We want a free and fair election. But once the dust settles, accept it, come together, work together as a country to unite in common cause. I'm old enough now to have lived in a time, not most of my life, because I've seen life change, where, people used to come together despite election differences and put the nation's need and the overall needs first. Now it seems to be everybody for themselves, polarization. What was once fringe is now mainstream, and it's not getting better. And this was before the pandemic. People will say, oh, I can't wait for things to get back to normal. Sorry, they weren't normal to begin with, and they were rapidly heading to be even worse, and that was before the pandemic. So anyway, now that I've ranted for a little bit, let's proceed with the show. Our guest tonight is Mr. Ajit Chak. And Ajit, I've known him for several years. We first met in India when I was working at the Daily Post newspaper under Manish Tiwari, the owner, founder, and editor-in-chief of that newspaper. And then, of course, I continued to work with Ajit, which was wonderful. We did a lot of videos and TV work together in India. Everything from he was involved off and on with Cal's Corner, and also we would do segments together where we would just look at the latest headlines and talk about them and then say what our opinions were. He'd come to me and say, hey, let's talk about this, and I'd come to him, and I really enjoyed those. I really did, and I miss him. I'm not in India, of course. But Ajit, welcome to Cal's Corner. Welcome from the USA, and I'm
Hi,
honored
Cal.
to have you as a guest. Thank you. So, Ajit, why don't you just tell people about yourself for a couple of minutes here, because you've got quite a resume that's just incredible.
Well, Cal, basically, as you know, I'm a career journalist, and I began working with a paper called the Times of India, which is supposed to be India's leading newspaper today. I worked with several papers like the Indian Express, Pioneer, and even with India's most prestigious environment and science magazine called Down to Earth, which is an
Mm-hmm.
international magazine, very well known in the US also. And it's headed now by a lady called Sunita Narayan, who's an environmentalist and who's also on the air pollution quality control panel of the Supreme Court in
Hmm.
India,
Okay.
which is known as the Bure Lal Committee. She has done a lot of work to help abate air pollution, water pollution, and other things in India. I worked with her there, which is where I met Manish Tiwari, who was the founder editor of Daily Post later on.
Yes.
And I have been involved with both audiovisual media, I've been involved with electronic media, I've been involved with print media. I was also a cartoonist at one time, and I've written a couple of books. One of them is called Kashmir Storm, which was written much before the special status of Kashmir was abolished by the Indian government. And it talks about certain laws in Kashmir, like before the special status of Kashmir was abolished by the Indian government, prostitution was legal in Kashmir but nowhere else in India. Then I've written another book called Born in La Martiniere, which you did a review on, which is about my school, my alma mater, where I studied as a child. And it was a work of fiction about how in 1971 the Pakistan government sets up a special suicide squad to go and just blow up the Taj Mahal in Agra because they realize they're losing the war and they want to go out with a big bang.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a group of boys from La Martiniere College who actually go there with their own NCC rifles and take on the Pakistani commando squad and manage to wound a lot of them and shoot them and hand them over to the Indian Army. I mean, it's a wacky story like Five Find Outers and Dog, Enid Blyton, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. And both of these
Uh,
books are available on Amazon.com, as I recall.
both are available on Amazon, and the one Born in La Martiniere did very well in uh, the state of Uttar Pradesh, where I'm based right now in Lucknow,
Mm.
because the school is in Lucknow. So we sold out 500 copies on day one itself when we were launching
That's
the
good.
book, and we sold another 1,000 copies in the city itself,
Mm-hmm.
which is it's a very high figure for a city like Lucknow because you don't get people buying books here. People hardly read here. They're more into eating kebabs and kormas and curries because Lucknow is a city that's known more for kebabs, kormas, and curries rather than reading books.
Mm-hmm.
This is supposed to be the city of Nawabs. If you're familiar with that term, Nawab means a ruler, rich man, whatever. So he's
And
supposed
rich
to be
men
fond
don't read
of books
books.
and food and stuff like that and
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Yeah. So tell me, Cal, what else do you want to know?
Well, you also, one of the first things I heard about you when we first met was that you had worked for what was then the Soviet Union, as far as in the media for
Yes,
their
I
the
had
embassy.
worked for the USSR Information Department in Barakamba Road, 25 Barakamba Road in Delhi, and it was supposed to be their Cold War office. I'm glad the Cold War is over. Anyhow, so I worked there for about 7 to 8 months, almost a year. After that, the Soviet Union wound up that office. The head of the office was a gentleman called B.O. Sheikh Muradov. He's no longer alive. He was probably murdered by his political rivals in Turkmenistan.
In
Once
Turkmenistan.
the
Okay.
free, he became the deputy prime minister there. And he was very powerful because he was, I believe, they say, with the Committee for National Security in the
Mm.
USSR, which of course, translates into KGB.
Right, right,
But yes,
right.
I did work with USSR, yes.
So, so you say they killed him because they knew or found out he was KGB, which of course would
No,
be
no, no, no.
textbook.
He became deputy prime minister because he was KGB. A lot of former KGB men either became big businessmen
Right.
or began to run their own mafia organizations in
Mm-hmm.
Moscow,
Yes.
or
Okay.
they became very powerful politicians. He was one of the guys who was clean, so he became a powerful politician.
I understand the timeline now.
But
Yeah.
there was obviously a clash of interests, political interests there. So I think the prime minister must have got him killed because he disappeared.
Mm.
His wife filed several complaints. He just disappeared, and people disappear, as you know, in well, the Eastern Bloc, as they say.
Yeah, they do. And I assume today, this is the first I'm hearing of it, but I assume today that he's never been found.
No, he's never been found. In fact, there were rumors that he died in prison. But so a lot of stuff can be traced on the internet, and that's about it.
Hmm. You remind me of what you said reminds me of something that a lot of people don't know in the USA. Remember, our most transparent president is, of course, Barack Obama, if you believe the hype. Well, did you know, Ajit, that the head of the former Taliban, the former head of the Taliban, Mullah Omar, he dies of diabetes in a Pakistani hospital about 18 months before Obama announces it. And he announces it kind of matter of factly because someone asked him, "Hey, you got Bin Laden a while back. When are you going to get the other guys?" And I'm sorry, that was embarrassing. I was at Daily World working with you when that news came down, and I reported on it. But that reminded me of this, where oh yeah, they knew where he was, whatever, and they just don't say
Yeah,
nothing.
Again, you'll be surprised, but in India, they rate John F. Kennedy as one of your best presidents, and they rate Richard Nixon as one of your worst presidents because of his involvement with Bangladesh and Pakistan in the 1971 war against India, the stand he took. But John F. Kennedy, I mean, and any history buff in India just loves John F. Kennedy.
Yes,
I
because
don't
he
know whether
sent the
you're aware of
Enterprise.
this, but no. Kennedy did not send the Enterprise. It was Richard Nixon who sent the
Oh,
Enterprise.
I'm sorry, Nixon.
Uh,
Yes.
yeah. But
Yeah. Sorry.
there's a little known fact. We are having a lot of tension with China right now, and Trump has been quite vocal about it, when he was president,
Mm-hmm.
that the Chinese are not doing the right thing, what they're doing in Ladakh on the Himalayan border with India. But what happened during Kennedy's time is that the Chinese actually attacked India. And the
Yes.
Indian army was too ill equipped to fight them back. We were being wiped out right, left, and center. We were just not equipped for hill warfare because we were basically a people from the plains. And Nehru went on appeal to Kennedy to save the world's largest democracy. And apparently, you had something in Europe that time which was called the Strike Command. Later, I think it became the Rapid Deployment Force or the NATO. I don't know what it became.
Mm-hmm.
But Kennedy's planes took off from Germany, landed in India within 12 hours. It took the Indian Army more than 48 hours to unload all the equipment he'd sent us. Once we'd unloaded the equipment, Nehru went on appeal again to Kennedy to ask for a massive retaliatory USAF strike against the Chinese. Are you listening to this, Kal?
Yes, I am. Go ahead.
And it seems, if you look at what is available on the internet today, it seems that Kennedy was willing to order that strike. And the moment the Chinese intelligence got wind of it, they called off the war.
That's very interesting. So you think it was really going to go down? It wasn't like the D-Day messages that were put out there to mislead Hitler before the actual invasion and confuse him as far as the location. You think JFK
No,
was going to move
I
forward?
think the Americans were actually planning something very big at that time. A
Interesting.
very big retaliatory airstrike to save India from the Chinese at that time. Because there was no business interest with China which exists today.
Right,
And
exactly.
it's business interest with China that's holding back India, that's holding back China, that's holding back the entire world
Yeah.
from actually taking any action against each other.
Okay, Ajit, we'll be back after this commercial break and we'll continue. Thank you.
Sure.
Welcome back to the second segment here on Cal's Corner Radio on the X Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host. The executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Our special guest for this episode is Mr. Ajit Chak, who is joining us from India. And Ajit, you're in Delhi at the moment, yes? Or no,
No, I'm in
Lucknow?
Lucknow at the moment.
Lucknow, sorry about that. Okay. Ajit was telling us in the last part before the break about what happened with President John F. Kennedy of the United States in the early 60s in a war that had broken out when China, communist China, let's be blunt, invaded India for no valid reason. Communists do that. History has proven it. I'm not being propagandist. You can just look it up. In fact, why don't you open up anybody who thinks that communism is okay or it's just a form of socialism, why don't you open up the Guinness Book of World Records? It's in there. I remember seeing it from high school, and it hasn't changed. It's gotten worse. Open up Guinness Book of World Records and look up genocide, mass murderers, and you will see a very familiar pattern there, folks. The Communist Party, communism, is responsible for more deaths in this world than any other political system in history, believe it or not. And Stalin killed at least twice as many people as Hitler did. And of course, Mao holds the record. There may be as many as 200 million people may have killed. We know it's at least around 100 million. Nobody knows for sure because nobody cared enough to count the bodies. Then, of course, you have Pol Pot in there. Hitler is not number one. In fact, he gets all the publicity, but, he's what, 4 or 5 or something like that. Anyway, Ajit, you were telling us about what Kennedy had done, and you mentioned a very interesting point before the break, that these countries have such a serious business tie with communist China that is holding them back. Now, let's take it from there. And first of all, how has it been ever since this problem? It's almost a year now broke out when, let's be blunt, there's no apologizing for this. They knew when they let these people travel outside China, they even encouraged global travel, that they were sending out infected people. It was literally a biological attack in the sense of they knew what they were doing. Let's be blunt. You can't send out infected people and say, well, I didn't know. To use an analogy, that's like sending out a suicide bomber and saying, well, I didn't know what was in his backpack. Well, yeah, you did. So how has it been in India? I only know the news reports and some reports from friends, but you're there, ground zero. What the hell has it been like? Don't mince any words.
Well, India was hit hard. India has been hit hard by this COVID thing. And yes, you're right. I'm sure in some military academy somewhere in the world, or maybe in all military academies today in the world, they will be trying to make a textbook case out of this Wuhan thing and this virus, which Trump calls the Chinese virus.
Yes.
As how to start biological warfare. And maybe a more deadlier virus could be invented, could be engineered to actually, send out suicide bombers like this. Because you see, what does the Taliban do? It brainwashes an individual, it straps a bomb to his body and sends him out into a crowd and says, okay, press the button, you will go straight to heaven and get 72 girlfriends there.
Yeah.
And of course, lots of biryani to eat. So that's how they work. So in this case, of course, indoctrination, then infection, and send a guy out there and he infects something like 10 to 20,000 people. And if you have a virus that's highly contagious, yes, I would call it biological warfare. The question is that we haven't been able to prove that it was done with this intent. Maybe it was accidental. Maybe it was something else. So we don't really know what happened, but the very fact that infected people were sent out was a grave risk to the rest of the world. And the rest of the world has suffered. Thousands and lakhs of people have died all over the world, including India.
Ajit, hold on. Just a second here. Ajit, you'll have to explain to our listeners what a lakh is, L-A-K.
A lakh is, say, 10 lakhs make a million.
Okay, so it's 100,000. So when you say 5 lakhs, it's 500,000.
500,000.
500,000, yes. Okay, just so our listeners know, because I never heard lakh, and most Westerners don't know until I lived in India, of course.
Yeah. So basically, 100,000, thousands and hundreds of thousands of people have died in the US alone. And people have died. One of the reasons why people died initially is that I think doctors did not know how to treat this.
Mm-hmm.
And now, with hindsight, they know where they went wrong. So you find lesser fatalities now, but then that's the situation. You see, whenever there's going to be a new virus coming, again, doctors will be caught on the back foot. They will not know what medicine to give, what medicine to use. And if it's a very contagious virus, then, millions will die before they find the treatment protocol.
Well, let me ask you this, because one of the I have a book. I'm not finished writing it yet, but it's not going to take that long to finish. It's called COVID Cover Up: What the Chinese Communist Party is Hiding, and it's only focused on what they've hidden and lied about. And one of the things that I found shocking was that this was a perfect storm, meaning, as you may recall, there was the bird flu breakout and there was an accident at the Wuhan lab, and the conditions were so bad there, safety wise, that the Obama administration and everybody got together, since Wuhan's internationally funded, to kind of nip this in the bud and make sure this doesn't happen again. And they signed off again on the idea to let China take all the international glory to show, oh, we're progressing, peaceful, whatever. In the meantime, they're doing dual use up the you know what. And so what happened was there's no evidence, like you said, that's been found that they deliberately weaponized this thing or created it. But there's no question that when they banned internal travel, but actually bent over backwards to encourage external travel to around the world, they had to know what the consequences would be. And so what shocked me the most was, you may remember this, during the Cold War, there were plans in place to handle World War III. That doesn't mean you'd
Mm-hmm.
survive a nuclear attack, but there were plans for a gas attack, so on. There were whole infrastructures, whole programs. And then the Cold War ends. We take the nuclear missiles and don't aim them at each other. We literally take them away from being pointed at each other. And Russia tells us where all their stuff is moving at all times. Okay, fine. But now you've got a preparedness that is not there. And then the very nature of this is such that if you're not prepared, you're screwed. Then you have globalism, which has integrated the economy. And of course, as you probably noticed, the patterns between Italy and so on directly trace the Silk Road patterns with
Yes,
China.
yes. True,
Yeah.
that's true.
So one of the things that came out, in my long-winded point here, is, of course, in the U.S., we were so smart and clever, thanks to the Democrats and Republicans, let's be honest, that we had essentially China controlling almost all of our medicine supply chain. What was the case in India, where you can
That's the
walk in
case
and
in
get
India too. A lot of
antibiotics over the
medicines
counter?
are made in China. A lot of medicines are made in China.
So even from India.
We export a lot of iron ore to China.
Hmm.
We import a lot of fertilizer from China, and that's still going on despite the anti-Chinese tirade in the media in India. See, the only thing we are imposing bans on is very insignificant things like Chinese firecrackers, Chinese lights, Chinese decoration pieces for functions like like Diwali or Eid.
Mm.
Now, how much does this actually sell? Nobody really knows.
Huh.
But if you convert it to the real trade in China and you try and compare it to as the kind of trade India has with China in terms of iron ore, in terms of
Mm.
fertilizer and things like that, it's insignificant to even think of imposing a ban on these things because it will not really hurt China and it will not even hurt India. It's like
So
that.
you're saying that all this hand waving is just political theater to
It's
punish China?
cosmetic. It's cosmetic. There
Okay,
are
which
too
means
many
it's not
business
real.
interests. Otherwise, by now the Chinese would have attacked us and we would have attacked them, and there'd be a hot shooting war going on in the Himalayas. And maybe
Okay,
we'd be appealing to Trump or Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, to send the USAF again. I have no idea. I don't know what will happen.
okay, but there was, you mentioned at first the war that broke out when the communist Chinese invaded India, but there was a recent conflict that broke out where a lot of people got killed, which I was very disappointed, didn't really get the coverage here. In other words, you'd never know this happened if you watched most editions of CNN, for example, and I find that disgusting. Maybe now that Kamala is, the VP, apparently, maybe India is suddenly important to CNN, I don't know. But anyway, if you could share for our listeners what happened recently when Indian soldiers got into a physical fight with Chinese soldiers at the border, who died, how it happened, because when I heard the news about how India kicked their butt, I was ecstatic.
You see, there are conflicting reports about all this as to how it all happened, how it all began, and everything's in the media, but everything is on the internet, but not official confirmations of a lot of incidents are not there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One thing is definitely very clear that both Indian and Chinese troops are not allowed to carry guns on the border,
Right,
Indian China
right.
border, unlike Pakistan. As far as the Pakistan border is concerned, we have cannons on both sides and we have troops carrying guns, and the hot shooting war keeps taking place every now and then. They try and send terrorists across, we shoot them down. They fire with their cannons from the other side, we fire back. It's
Yeah.
like that. If we had that kind of situation, say, in the Chinese border, then maybe these infiltrations by the Chinese, this desire to walk across into Indian territory may not be there. But that's a decision for the big wigs in the government to take, not for a journalist to take or even comment on.
Mm-hmm.
What happened is we know for a fact that around 20 of our people were killed in a brawl that took place when the Chinese obviously tried to cross into Indian territory. And they
Mm-hmm.
also killed a colonel of the Indian army there.
Yes.
Right. We don't
Yes.
know how many Chinese died, but we assume that almost twice the number of Chinese died.
Yes, I've heard it's about twice, yes.
Yeah. But the Chinese have never, even though there has been some images, some satellite footage, or something or the other, but the Chinese have never actually officially acknowledged this. Unlike India, India has officially acknowledged the death of the soldiers. So one thing is true that if it was still the situation say, in the 1960s where China was not an industrial complex supplying goods to the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
Probably by now the entire world would have, you know, decided that's enough is enough. It's time we taught the Chinese a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
But because of these numerous business interests and trade ties, and the world is to blame. Europe is to blame. America is to blame. India is to blame for allowing organizations like the WTO to destroy their own industrial base and
Yeah.
shift all dependence on China. Now they're
Yes.
trying to pull out of it. Now they're trying to pull out of it by encouraging industry to migrate to Cambodia, to Vietnam, to Thailand, to Burma, to Bangladesh, to India. They're trying to do their level best to get industry over here. But we have certain issues. You see, being a democracy, you have to have labor laws and labor rights.
Yes.
Now, in China, there's no such thing as labor laws or labor rights or a minimum wage act or minimum
Right.
salaries.
Right.
If you were to pay Chinese labor the kind of money that a plumber or an electrician gets, say, in Canada, which works out to almost a couple of $100 an hour, right? There is
Mm-hmm.
no way the Chinese can sell their products so cheaply all over the world,
Right. Right.
right? So the
Mm-hmm.
same situation applies in India. I mean, we have to pay a certain basic salary, we have to give people a certain amount of leave, we have to give them only a fixed hour of work. We can't make people work for more than 7 hours a day. We have to make, I believe the sweatshops in the world where people work for 18 hours a day and probably get paid much less than what an Indian worker gets. So how can you get countries to compete against China unless you impose sanctions on Chinese goods everywhere in the world?
Well, you can't. They're not supposed to do that because they're a member of the WTO. Everyone's supposed to play
Exactly.
fair.
So
That's the
now
point of it.
organizations like WTO have created a situation where you're allowing a belligerent communist giant to bulldoze its way into everything.
You're right. Ajit, we have to take a break, and we'll be back after this commercial break. Welcome back to the third segment here on Cal's Corner Radio and the X Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host. The executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. And our special guest tonight is Mr. Ajit Chak, who is joining us from Lucknow, India, where it is 13.5 hours. Yes, 13 and a half hours ahead of where I am, at least. And India has one time zone, God bless them. But they have this 30-minute thingy that goes on, and I don't understand it, but oh well. But yeah, one time zone. Very easy to keep track of what time zone you're in India, unlike Russia. All right, Ajit, you were talking about the integration of the global economy, that it is the fault of all the countries. You're right, absolutely. So, this reminds me of the UN Security Council. You've got China as a member, permanent member, so they have veto power. So anybody who tries to take any action against them, gee, they veto it. So the system doesn't work because the system can't accommodate the reality on the ground. You probably heard the news today in Hong Kong that the entire pro-democracy lawmakers have resigned now. They basically surrendered to China.
I don't blame them. It's going to be a very, very uphill task to take on the Chinese issue and the Chinese problem. It's a problem that we have created in the last 50 to 60 years for ourselves. And the
Yes,
Chinese have worked on it with a vision.
yes.
Then you remember the era of Deng Xiaoping. Deng Xiaoping actually said that within 20 years, by 20, no, not 20 years, but by 2020, in China would be a global superpower. And they have worked with it on a on a level with the vision, because the Chinese plan not in 5 years like the way the Indians do. We have 5 year plans. They plan in generations, and they've been
Yeah,
doing it throughout their history. Throughout their
yes.
history, there was a time when the Chinese princesses of the lower nobility were married off to the nomads and the Khans who used to live on the outskirts of China, to prevent them from attacking China, because the Chinese military was weak at that time, if you look at Chinese history.
Hmm.
And these Chinese princesses were the intelligence network of the Chinese government at that time. They would give intelligence about their kingdoms to the Chinese. Not only that, once the Chinese military became strong enough, the Chinese army just rode out one night and slaughtered these people right, left, and center and drove them off. So that's Chinese history. They plan in generations. They don't plan in this thing. Europeans, Indians, Americans, we plan in years. Now that's the basic mistake we make when it comes to planning for a nation. In a nation, you can't build a nation in 5 years. It takes generations to build a nation. As a democracy, we've become so vibrant. As a nation, India has become very different to what India was 30 years back. I mean, an average Indian would spend almost 90% of his salary on basic necessities in the 1990s.
Hmm.
Today, that same Indian has a corpus, he has savings. But with COVID, with this Chinese virus that came into India, the economy has been shattered. The lockdown has broken our back because we are basically a service economy. We're not a manufacturing economy. We
Hmm.
have, you know, millions of people from different states working in other states in various levels. A computer engineer, for example, could be from, say, Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh, and he may be working in a city called Chennai or Bengaluru or in Gurgaon, which is, something like 700 kilometers away to 1500 kilometers away from his hometown.
Hmm.
The same
Yes.
applies to uneducated people or semi skilled labor, factory hands. You have something like almost 20 to 30 million people from Uttar Pradesh and Bihar working in Punjab, working in other states, Maharashtra, in Gujarat, which is highly industrialized, as industrial hands or workers or farm hands, even for that matter, in Punjab. So you have to keep these things in mind, that COVID and its lockdown impacted us more than anybody else in the world. The biggest hit, Cal, was the media. You see, media depends on industry for support to print its newspapers because they need advertisements. Okay,
Yes. Yes.
the production of a newspaper or the running of a TV channel is subsidized virtually by industry.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Without industry making profits, huge profits, and giving off that money to the newspaper or the channels will close down or they'll not be in a position to pay salaries. Thousands and thousands of journalists all over India have lost their jobs, or even if they have their jobs, they're working for 30% or 20% of the kind of money they were getting, say, a year back.
Mm-hmm. I understand.
Now, and what about those who suddenly, and I'm not talking about small newspapers, I'm talking about big newspapers like the Hindustan Times, the Times of India, the
Mm-hmm.
Indian Express. A lot of people have lost jobs. The small newspapers, some have folded up. A lot of cost cutting has taken place. A lot of channels have closed down. A lot of channels are not paying their staff because they're not in a position to do so because there's no money coming in from anywhere.
Yeah.
Advertisement agencies are not being able to pay their staff full salaries. Situation's improving now, but even now there are millions of unemployed people on the streets of India.
Now, when you say
Especially
millions,
the
uh,
tourism sector, the
mhm.
hospitality sector, it's been wiped out completely. This year, right now it's winter in India. Agra, cities like Agra, Jaipur,
Yes.
Rajasthan, they would have been full of foreign tourists, coming there and
Right.
spending money, giving people jobs. The hotels would have been full of this thing. People would have been cooking and selling food to them. Things would have been taking place.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing is happening there right now. Nothing. And most people are totally dependent on these because the social security network is still very poor in India.
In the America, they had this one so-called stimulus. They're debating whether throwing more crumbs to the people. Is there anything at all going on from the Modi government similar to a stimulus, or at least something planned now that everything's spiking
Well, they
again?
have various stimulants, but the thing is that you see, India is not a rich country, and so basically they have to depend on the banking system and public funds because the government doesn't have spare cash with it to go around putting into welfare schemes. So they have come up with various plans like they will give you a soft loan to start a small industry of your own, to start a manufacturing unit of your own. They're
Mm-hmm.
trying to handle what's called the supply side of it. But how do you create demand? You see, I may produce, say, 1,000 scooters every day.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
how do I sell my scooters if there's no money in the market? So they have to look at the demand side of things, how to create demand
Yeah.
also. The largest employers in the rural sector, it's agriculture in India, and in the urban sector, it's the real estate sector.
Mm-hmm.
Real estate, construction, all these things are very labor intensive. They
Right.
require human labor. The technology levels are very low compared to the kind of technologies that are used globally right now to make buildings and things of that sort. So these sectors have been hurt very badly by COVID. That is one of the biggest problems here. Or
What?
take for that matter, take the media for that matter. I'm myself without a job, ever since this COVID thing has come up.
Well, I think it's terrible to hear this, of course, and we're friends, and I absolutely feel for you. Over where I've been, for example, 80% of the jobs have been wiped out. 80%.
Okay.
Not exaggerating. And of course, things are spiking again. And they started spiking after Trump started holding his rallies. They've traced it to that. And they've actually found the DNA in the labs to say, yes, it was this event, super spreader. And the other thing was the governor, in his infinite wisdom, decided to no longer enforce a limit of 50 people gathering. Up to 250 was okay. No, it wasn't okay. 5 times 50 is 250, and it goes exponentially. So now, of course, you've
So
got
they've done
schools
the
shutting
same thing.
down.
They have done the same thing in this thing in India.
Hmm.
They have done the same thing. They have increased the limit from 50 people for say a marriage party to 250 or to I think 200 or I think 100 plus or whatever. But what happens is that we have a very bureaucratic system in India. So people use loopholes in that system to get around the law. For example, if you have a hotel which has 4 banquet halls and you have a limit on, say, you can only call 100 guests for one banquet, then 4 people in that family who's holding that banquet will go and book 4 banquets of 100 people each in 4 different names. And then they'll have 400 people attending that banquet. So that banquet becomes a super spreader in the local area.
Uh, yeah, it's maddening because I have
And you see,
no.
the problem is that the media can't report. The media can't report. The media is very weak right now. The media is on a back foot. The media is doing exactly what the government wants it to do because they're now totally dependent on government revenue and government ads to
But
get their papers and their channels running because nothing
but
is coming in from the private sector right now.
okay, not disputing any of that. You are absolutely right. But let's say that money wasn't a problem. The media was reporting on this as best as they could. Everything. I think the bigger problem is, at least from my view and my interactions with people daily, and I have these conversations probably like you do every day with people. It's like there's record numbers of people for modern time, 21st century, high tech, whatever, that just don't believe in science. It's beyond not thinking critically. It's beyond believing in some religion or superstition. It is to the point where people are saying, well, a mask doesn't, do anything, or gee, it's a fake. One guy told me to watch out for these conspiracy nuts because they're crazy. And then he
Mm-hmm.
whispers to me and tells me that this thing that I should not have 5G because that caused the virus because they were testing it in Wuhan. Oh my God! So he didn't even know he was worse than one of these conspiracy nuts, and he's
No, we
warning
have
you about the other
we have
ones.
we have the same issues in India. We have the same issues in India, and the surprising part is that you will have a engineer or a software expert or a person who's got a doctorate in literature or science or whatever
Hmm.
actually turn around and say this that people who are highly educated who have very fancy degrees are actually saying believe in this kind of bullshit. But
Yeah.
ground reality is tough here right now, Cal. COVID and this coronavirus thing have caused a lot of upheaval, a lot of upset, a lot of people on the verge of starvation. A lot of people are hungry. The government is trying its level best, especially the Yogi Adityanath government is trying to do a lot. The Captain Amarinder Singh government in Punjab, I find, is very progressive, very agile, and very responsive. They're
Mm.
trying their level best. The kind of bureaucrats he has are probably the best in India right now, in the entire country.
Punjab.
And yeah, Punjab.
Okay.
Even our chief minister in UP is extremely concerned about what's happening, but then the things are bad. Take me, for
Yeah.
example, I'm just one of the media men who lost his job. Somebody's wife is running a beauty parlor now, trying to, make some money for her husband to run, keep the family together. My wife cooks and sells food. I mean, I have to package kebabs and deliver them to people's homes to run my house right now because there's no money coming in from anywhere.
Oh,
So
gee,
it's like that. If she didn't know how to cook food, and then probably I wouldn't be having food on my table right now because the thing could have got pretty bad. We even thought about selling our house. We could sell our house and move to a smaller house, and have some money. But because of this COVID, the real estate market is down in the dumps.
hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And because of the real estate market, the real being down in the dumps, we can't even do that. So we have to do these kind of activities to sustain ourselves right now. And I don't
I
see the
understand.
situation.
Ajit, we'll be back after this commercial break and we'll continue. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on Cal's Corner Radio on the X Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host. The executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Now, our special guest tonight is Ajit Chak. He's not only a professional journalist with a wonderful, incredible pedigree background, but also he's a friend of mine. I know him personally. I've worked with him for years. And Ajit, before I forget, some of the stuff that you were talking about, my mind was flashing back to some of the places you were mentioning, and I kept thinking, wow, what would happen if I was still there as a foreigner, fish out of water, that type thing. And I just wanted to share something with you that I never told you, at least as far as I know, in person when we were working together. But I want you to know, especially ever since I've left there and I've had time to reflect back on the wonderful people I met there and all the also as well as the crazy stuff that went on there. And that's not a reference to you. I just wanted to say that although we're from different countries and cultures, I always appreciated not only your friendship and honesty and openness, but you were one of the few people, really the only one that I could talk to even about the subject of UFOs. You got it. You understood it. You would talk about things that no other Indians knew, that I knew, and I really appreciated that because when we'd talk about whatever, and you were it was like part of you was had one foot in the American scene, whatever you want to call it, and that's impressive because you didn't grow up there, and I just wanted to say that that was just one of those things that just really it just it's neat. It's really neat and appreciated.
Thank you, Cal. One of the reasons for that, Cal, was my education. I was a senior bureaucrat's son. My father was the first IAS officer in the Kashmiri Pandit community in India. He
Mm-hmm.
was he became an IAS officer in 1948,
Mm-hmm.
just after independence. And the other person who became a Indian Foreign Service officer along with him, his contemporary, was a very famous gentleman called P.N. Haksar,
Mm-hmm.
who was with Jawaharlal Nehru and later with Indira Gandhi, two prime ministers.
Okay.
If you look up Google, you will find that gentleman's name there. So these two people were the first two people from our community. So I had the benefit of going to extremely good schools. I mean, as a child, I went to St. Columbus in Delhi, which was it is supposed to be the best school in India.
Hmm.
And then I went to another school called La Martiniere College, which is in Lucknow. And it's rated to be amongst the top 12 or top 10 schools in India today. So we had the benefits of Western education, which most people in India did not have at that time.
Mm-hmm.
That gave me a fresh insight into things and a different vision, which is why you found me so easy to communicate with. Because the British wanted to create brown Britishers for themselves in India as long as they ruled, and it's a result of
Yeah.
that kind of education.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
question is now, what do I do with this accent? I mean, where do I take it? I mean, I'm not even going to get a job in a call center right now because I believe the Chinese are working on accents also. So you will
Hmm.
have a lot of Chinese with a clipped British accent or a Virginia accent, answering your phone calls when your credit cards don't work,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
guess.
Chinese tech support person with the name of Abraham Lincoln. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah. Exactly.
I
Uh,
wonder where they'll get the beard from.
well, if I wanted to make a politically incorrect joke, they'd probably get it from the Uyghurs, right?
I have,
That's a heartbreaking story. You mentioned the labor issue. Some of the labor, of course, is slave labor, and of course, they're infamous for harvesting the organs of their anybody they want to.
well,
Congress
you
has
see,
always
if
been
you
that way.
read my book, Kashmir Storm, it talks about, not selling women into prostitution or into the flesh trade, but kidnapping them and then selling their kidneys because there's more money in selling kidneys than in selling this thing. And this kind of thing is actually happening in Pakistan occupied Kashmir, I believe, that women are kidnapped. If you look at the internet, it says there are almost 20,000 prostitutes in the Gilgit region of Pakistan, where Pakistan has forcibly occupied a part of Kashmir. One of the reasons for that is, I don't know whether you heard of the Hunza Valley, but the Hunza Valley is in Pakistan right now. It's a part of Kashmir. And the Hunza Valley is a place where people live up to 160 years. And they're supposed to be the most beautiful and most handsome people in the world. And they don't eat. Are you listening to this, Cal?
I'm listening. Yes, I'm all
No,
ears.
they don't eat wheat. They eat a diet of fruits and berries.
Okay, so
And these
you
people
said
begin to
meat.
age. They begin to age after the age of 80 or 90. Before that, they appear to be in their 40s, early 40s or late 30s.
Okay, so you said meat, not wheat, right?
I said wheat,
Oh,
Wheat.
wheat. Okay, all right,
They
because
don't
I
eat
thought,
cereals. They don't eat cereals. But
that's
whatever it is, they say that these people have longevity. They have the fountain of youth there. Maybe it's genetic, maybe it's environmental. But you can't do any research on it because they're under a totalitarian military regime like Pakistan. So nobody can go there. Nobody can do research there, and probably things are pretty bad there. And if the internet says there are 20,000 prostitutes there, that means the area must be considerably impoverished and backward.
yeah, and for whatever reason, seemingly bad and ugly, it's of importance to them. Where, you know, it's a closed, like you say, totalitarian type environment there. What very few people over here, of course, at least most Americans, don't care and are ignorant of every. To them, Kashmir's a sweater. Uh, can you summarize briefly what the significance is of what India did recently regarding Kashmir?
You see, what India has done is that they have removed the special status of Kashmir, which comes under Article 370. Now, under Article 370, it was impossible for anybody in India to buy land in Kashmir. Okay.
Mm, okay.
Now, under Article 370, Kashmir had its own penal code, which made prostitution legal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There was no punishment for prostitution there.
Mm-hmm.
And under Article 370, the funds that were given by the central government for development of Kashmir could not be audited by anybody.
Okay.
Okay. So it gave the politicians there a free hand on siphoning off money or whatever they wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, all these things have changed. The other thing is that almost 60% of the people who are working in Kashmir are government employees. So earlier, they were getting state government salaries, which is a paltry amount compared to central government salaries. Then they used to
Okay.
get a salary, say, once in 3 months or once in 2 months. Now they're getting salaries on the first of the month and they're getting a higher salary because they're getting a central government salary because it's become a union territory. So they're very
Okay.
happy.
Okay.
The people who are not happy are the politicians there. However, there is one big danger.
Mm-hmm.
The one big danger is that by allowing anybody to buy land in Kashmir, you open up Kashmir to the fact that there are certain Wahhabi and radical elements sitting in certain parts of India, like Azamgarh, like Ghazipur in Uttar Pradesh, in parts of Bihar, who are very pro Pakistan in their thought process.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these elements could grab a lot of land in Kashmir, change the demography there, change the population there, and bring in more hardliners into Kashmir to create more problems for the government. So the government has to be very watchful of this. They
Mm-hmm.
will have to ensure that nobody with a criminal background or a suspicious political background is allowed to buy land in Kashmir. They will have to ensure that. They will have to come up with special laws to regulate that because if they free up everything, it's going to be a big mess out there. It's a
Is
very
there
sparsely populated state.
is there a time frame that they roughly have in mind where they think they'll have this thing where they want it to be, which justified them going in there doing this in the first place?
I can't say because I'm not in the government. But
Mm-hmm.
one thing is definite that they must be working on something. The Indian bureaucracy is very methodical on paper, The
Hmm.
other thing is delivery on the ground. Now, delivery on the ground is something that may or may not take place as per a timetable. Okay,
Hmm.
like that.
Yeah, because in the few people that I was able to talk to about this, at least in liberal West Coast U.S., they were like, "Oh no, Pakistan's going to do this or that," and it's like, "No, they're not going to do anything. It's bluster. They're not going to do squat." And as far as I know, they haven't done anything major in
See, the
retaliation.
Pakistani military has to justify its existence because I believe more than 65% of the budget of Pakistan goes to keeping the military there
Hmm.
in mink and in beer. Because you see, for a small country like Pakistan, where people are starving, people don't have jobs, there's no industry, there are
Yeah,
drugs, there is prostitution. I mean, a country like Pakistan should focus more on those issues rather than trying to create a super strong army for itself. If you want an army, okay, fine. Why don't you ask the Americans to station their troops there?
yeah,
You
because
have very
China
good
won't let
relations
them.
with the Americans. Give them a base. It will save you from a lot of expense. But you see, that will not allow the generals and the colonels of Pakistan to run the roost.
Right.
Almost every brigadier rank officer in Pakistan and above has his children studying and working in the United States. I mean,
Very
you can
good
check it
point.
out yourself. And in fact, once I believe there was some drone attack in which 8 or 9 Pakistani soldiers were killed. It was a US drone. Can you hear me, Kel?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
So the drone attack took place, and at that time, the generals of Pakistan threatened that they would hit back at the US. So the joke in India was that they are waiting for their children to be provided nuclear bomb shelters in the US first. After that, they will nuke the US.
Well, I hope that joke isn't literal, but I do understand the point. One of the things that surprised me years ago when I was taking the training with the Israeli counterintelligence stuff was that there is an agreement between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan for two nuclear bombs. That Pakistan has an agreement with Saudi Wahhabia that if the royals need a nuke on short notice, because of whatever reason, most likely Iran, Pakistan will give them one. Two of them, actually, as per the agreement. And the Saudis actually pay Pakistan a monthly, yearly fee to keep these things ready in the planes and all that. It was like, okay, I get it now. Because, of course, you may remember good old Dr. Khan. The Iranians had come there with him and said, hey, we just want to buy one from you. And he's like, no, we're not going to sell it, but we'll give you the means to make them. Here's some centrifuges.
Yeah, that's true.
Hmm.
That's very true.
Ajit, we have about a minute. Is there anything you want to end this with and share with anybody?
Well, yeah, definitely. I hope you give my kebabs and kormas some publicity so that I can make some money out of that. The other
Well,
thing is, Cal,
mhm.
the two books that I wrote, Kashmir Storm and Born in Lamatnia, I think people should read them because they document a lot of contemporary Indian history as well. They may be fiction, but a lot of trends are clearly evident in both books, and I think people should read both of them.
The one on La Martiniere, but that's based on a real incident, though, too, meaning Pakistan was going to destroy the Taj Mahal if they could, right?
But they sent two bombers. They sent two
Yeah.
bombers to Agra. The planes actually delivered bombs very near the Taj Mahal, but the
Hmm.
bombs failed to explode because they were World War II vintage bombs.
Ah, okay. Well, lucky for that, huh? That could have
Lucky for
been.
that. Also, the thing is that the government actually plastered mud and sticks over the Taj Mahal and gave it a camouflage so that it could not be seen from the open sky.
Yeah,
At
see,
that
most
time,
people don't.
there was no satellite technology and there was no Google, so it was not
Yeah.
possible to target Taj Mahal so easily. But given a war today with Pakistan, I'm sure the ancient monuments of India will be major casualties, especially the Ram Mandir that they're building in Ayodhya. Could
I
be a major
understand.
casualty because you
Ajit,
see, that's the
we
only way for Pakistan to win the war.
okay. Ajit, thank you. We've got to go. I appreciate it. We'll have you back on. God bless you, and we'll be in touch offline here
Thank
and
you.
independent of the show. Take care, my friend.